sagrajatam sahagana raghunathanvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Nama Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Ajanu Lambita Bujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Bande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Shrimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vamshivata tatakstitaha Karshan Venu Swanayir Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshai Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanar Vindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Ashtatarashata, Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Ashtatarashata, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatarashata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. Oh, I didn't even notice that we have a bookmarker. Yeah. Have to find the place. So there's a few interesting topics we're going to read about. So we're reading Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami with a commentary by our beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And he did up to like 77 verses out of 104. It has not been published before. This is the first time it's been published in book form. And it's very informative. It was also spoken by our Gurudev in the early 90s when he was very mercifully giving classes to enlighten the ISKCON leaders who wanted to hear from him. They approached him and they requested that he give them classes on different books of our acharyas in particular. So luckily we have this manuscript that has now been made into a book, and in the future I'm sure that it will be completed.
This is completed, but just without commentary, the last 27?
Yeah, it doesn't have commentary. Okay. But there's two different commentaries in the book. One is by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, and another one, I forget what they call it. Let me see. Well, anyway, we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. But I'm only reading Srila Gurudev's commentary.
Okay.
Yeah. So you might remember about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling to Srila Sanatana Goswami, who wanted to give up his body and commit suicide underneath the wheels of the Lord Jagannath's cart. Mm-hmm. Why? Because his body had contracted a disease as he was traveling through the jungles, which was what would you call it? Like he had different sores on the body that were oozing pus. And so when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw him, when he arrived in Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu immediately embraced him. And Sanatana Goswami felt very bad, because now that pus is going on Mahaprabhu's body. So he felt so wretched. He wanted to actually commit suicide. He came up with this idea, this plan. But what did Mahaprabhu tell him? He told him, you have given this body to me, and now you are behaving independently. You are giving yourself verbally, but internally you are not. You have no right to this body, for you have already surrendered it to me. Mahaprabhu also told him, if I thought that by giving up this life I could receive the service of Radha and Krishna, then I would want to give up my life lakhs and lakhs of times every day. But I know that Krishna and Krishna praying cannot be attained simply by dying. They can only be achieved by Krishna bhajan. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami to perform bhajan. And Sanatana Goswami then told Raghunath Das Goswami, who also had a same plan. He wanted to jump from Govardhan and commit suicide. So he told him that story, and then he told him, so you can die, but you cannot receive Krishna praying by such an act. Rather than die, you should perform bhajan at Radha Kund, Govardhan, Vrindavan, and other places of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. Raghunath Das Goswami had so much association with Srila Rupa Goswami. He wholly followed Srila Rupa Goswami, from whom he received everything. But Sanatana Goswami also acted as his Siksha Guru. Now, we went into this next section, that what is a Manjari? So Srila Gurudev is explaining the different types of sakis that there are. We went over all of that, 5 different types of sakis and so forth, and what is their mood. Then the next section is describing the mood of a Manjari. That was a very captivating section. And there's a particular name, which we all repeated a few times. The actual literal Sanskrit terminology for the mood of a Manjari, as opposed to the mood of a Saki, of different types of Sakis. But Manjaris have their own exclusive mood, which no one else has. Now, what is that called?
Tat, tad, bhav. Tat, tad, bhava. Icha, mai.
Ichatmika. Icha. What does Icha mean? Icha means desire. Tat tat bhav, ich atmika means it is their very atma that their desire is only to serve tat tat bhav. That means Radha and Krishna's bhavs. They don't want to meet separately with Krishna at any time. They're so loyal to Srimati Radhika. They're just like her own body. She feels that way towards them. And that is why they can be entrusted with the supreme intimate service that even the Ashtasakis cannot enter into the Kunj to render those kind of services at particular times. The Seva Kunj painting is illustrating that. Even the Manjaris can't be there, but they can come in first when it's time. And then they come in and they have their trays and they have all the paraphernalia, everything, for serving Radha and Krishna. Very, very essential services that they perform continually, non-stop, 24 hours a day, eternally. So their mood is called Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
is there, I remember hearing before that the mood of them, that there's a relationship between the words kinkini and kinkari. Kinkini is like her waist belt, Radharani's waist belt, like jeweled waist belt that has bells on it, and kinkari is maidservant of Srimati Radhika, and that the Manjaris are compared to like the bells on Srimati Radhika's waist because they're ringing, like calling out, "What can I do? What can I do?" Is this something you've heard before?
I haven't heard that particular, but it sounds quite good. That's probably you've not heard it from an unauthorized source, being in Srila Gurudev's Sangha. But we know, you just said it, that kinkari comes from the two words, king, K-I-M with a dot, king, kori. Kori means to do. What can I do? That's kinkari. A kinkari is a maidservant of Srimati Radhika, who is always, at every single moment, doing seva. Always, 24 hours. They're practically never, ever separated from Srimati Radhika. But kinkini is referring to the bells. It's in the Radha Kripa Kataksha Stavaraj and so forth. But perhaps our acharyas have also drawn a parallel between those two words. Yeah, why not? Like the waist bells on Srimati Radhika's body are always resounding. Kinkaris are also doing. We'll have to verify that. Now, there's a beautiful story that Srila Gurudev told how Radhika, once she wanted for Sri Rupa Manjari to meet with Krishna. And there's also some other explanations of that. Mani Manjari, another Manjari. So she looked towards Krishna. Radhika looked towards Krishna and hinted that he should catch hold of her. Of who? Of Rupa Manjari. And Krishna wanted to do so, but Rupa Manjari fell at his feet and prayed, "Please don't do this. I am Radhika Dasi. When you meet with Srimati Radhika, I get so much pleasure that I cannot describe it. So I request you to give me that pleasure, not this lesser pleasure." That's a pretty inconceivable statement to make. So Krishna agreed to her request, and this mood of devotion is called Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika. And then Gurudev is explaining about Sambhog Atmika, how that is a different type of bhav that the Sakhis have. But those gopis who become so much pleased and who experience all the symptoms of directly meeting Krishna simply by seeing Radha and Krishna meet, they are called Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika. They experience what Radhika has experienced with Krishna. You understand that point? Can you explain it? What does that mean?
Like the Manjaris?
What does it mean? That they experience what Srimati Radhika is experiencing. Simply by seeing Radha and Krishna meet, they experience what Radhika has experienced with Krishna, which is more than what they would have experienced by directly meeting with him. Tat Tad means the speciality of the meeting of Radha and Krishna and its bhav, its mood. Although they have all the qualities of the Naika or the Sambhogatmika gopis, if not more. They only want to serve like this. This devotion is therefore called Tat Tat Bhav Ichatmika Kam Atmika. Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari are both of this kind. How can this type of devotion be attained? Good question. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to this world only to give this bhav, not the love of Radhika or the love of the Nayika. So now Gurudev is quoting the famous verse that I heard the Gurukul kids say today. Anarpita chirim chirat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpaitum unatojvala rasam svabhakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sada hridaya kandare spuratuva sachinandana. So this verse was written by who? Vilapa-Goswami. Where did he write it? No, I mean, in which book? In which book did he write it? Huh? Yes. Introductory shlok. So, how do we know this verse? Because it's included as the 4th verse in the 1st chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the first chapters of Adi Lila, of Chaitanya Charitamrita, are going over 14 verses, 14 introductory verses. And from the 1st chapter up until the 7th chapter, those 14 introductory verses are being explained. We were very fortunate in 1975, just before the Chaitanya Charitamrita marathon that happened in 1975, in which the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed in 2 months, that whole marathon that I described. So, but Srila Prabhupada decided that that would be the topic of his morning lecture every day. So for 2 weeks, 14 days, Srila Prabhupada came every morning into the temple and he lectured on those 14 verses. That was the basis of his lecture. So of course we were unfamiliar with the verses, but we got to hear Srila Prabhupada's explanation. Now, this verse is under the heading of what Mahaprabhu came to give. What Mahaprabhu came to give. Important topic. This topic is the main topic that Srila Gurudev chose as his lecture series when he first left India and came to the West. He was actually reading from Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he wanted to drive this point home. What did Mahaprabhu come to give? That even became controversial because there were certain individuals who thought that they could very easily answer that question. He came to give Harinam Sankirtan to the whole world. But they didn't study and read the first chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because if they had, they wouldn't say like that. Why? Because the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has very, very carefully and explicitly presented why did Krishna come in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Why did Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, take this golden form and appear in Sri Navadvip Dham in 1486? Why? Why did he descend into this world? Who is he? And what did he come to give? What's his purpose? What's his purpose? No one who has not studied the presentation of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita can understand this. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has made it very, very clear that he has internal reasons for coming and also external reasons for coming. Primary and secondary. And this is what Srila Gurudev was trying to say. What is his primary reasons for coming? This verse of Rupa Goswami is telling it directly. In the second line, Samarpaitum. What does that mean? Samarpaitum, to give. The first line is saying, Anarpita charim chirat karunayavatirna kalo. He. It doesn't say who until the end of the verse. But he has appeared in Kali Yuga, Kalo, right? To give that which has not been given. For how long?
Very long.
Charim Chirat. Charim Chirat means very long time. It has not been given. Where has it not been given? In our universe that we live in. This universe has not been given. Then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami begins to explain how long time that is. One day of Brahma. In the entire day of Brahma, 1,000 Chatur Yugas, of the 4 Yugas, 1,000 cycles of them, only once this has been given. And by who? The same personality. Krishna himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani, because no one else can give this. Samarpaitum. He came to give. What? Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. Swaha Bhakti Shriyam. Each and every word of that line has to be clearly understood. What is it referring to? And it's directly referring to Manjari's moods. The love, the moods of the Manjaris. Because it's called Swabhakti Shriyam. Unnata Ujjvala Rasa is what? What is Unnata Ujjvala Rasa?
The highest conjugal mellow part. Yes.
That's true, but whose moods? Whose love? Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. Is it the love of the Sakis?
No, that's said in the second part, though, not in the Ujjvala Ras, right?
Unnata Ujjvala Ras is Srimati Radharani's own.
Yes.
That's why it's called Unnata. Unnata means most elevated. Ujjvala, that means Madhurya Rasa. Unnata Ujjvala Rasa, that means Mahabhav. Swabhakti. What does Swabhakti mean? Swa. Swa means his own, Krishna's own bhakti. And who is that? Srimati Radharani is Krishna's own bhakti. She is bhakti. She is Mahabhav personified. But now comes the last word in the line. Shriyam. What does Shriyam refer to? Shriyam means beauty. The beauty of. Unnata Ujjvala Rasa Swabhakti. Shriyam means the beauty of that. And that is what Manjari's mood. Because the example is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Ramananda Rai Samvad, also in the 4th chapter of Adi Lila, in discussing Radha Tattva and so forth, that the example is given that a vine, a creeper, a lata, it has decorating it, it has leaves, it has flowers, it has buds, manjaris like this. And the beauty of the creeper is that. And when the wind blows, those leaves and manjaris and so forth, they dance in the wind. That's the beauty. So those entities, as we've been hearing, the Sakis, the Manjaris and so forth, they are the beauty of that vine. In particular, the Manjaris, they are being referred to here. Yes.
I've always had a little bit of a hard time with this analogy because I imagine that then Srimati Radhika in this analogy is the vine sort of like stripped of leaves and flowers and manjaris. But if the connection is so like inseparable, then they're like the vine without its beauty is not possible, right?
Right.
So like you can't think of just the actual stem as Srimati Radhika and the leaves and the
Actually Srimati Radhika is all of that.
She's all of it.
It's actually her.
Yeah.
It's just like there's one statement, I forget the Bengali, but without many heroines, the ras ullas cannot take place. That's why there are billions of gopis, right? And so those billions of gopis are all combined together in the Maharas, right? But Srimati Radhika excels all. Actually, they are expansions of her, but she individually excels all. So it's not that she's dependent on those leaves and so forth, that she's independently full, just like Krishna is independently full of all beauty, all everything. So Srimati Radhika is not different than Krishna. She's the counterpart of Krishna. But for explaining the particular mood that Mahaprabhu came to give, Rupa Goswami is saying Shriyam. Okay? And he's making this point. Srila Gurudev made this point, and especially in Australia. He gave a series when he came the first time. And that book was made into, what's it called again? The Pinnacle of Devotion. Yeah. And so Gurudev was explaining that the moods of Srimati Radharani, her Unnata Ujjvala Ras, cannot be given. That cannot be given to anyone. Only she and Krishna are the proprietors of that. It's not constitutionally possible for a jiva to receive that. But what they can receive is the Shriyam, the beauty. The Manjari mood is the highest pinnacle of what a jiva can attain in all of eternity. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Guru. So, continuing on, Gurudev is explaining that Mahaprabhu has appeared in Kali Yuga by his causeless mercy to give what no incarnation ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant spiritual mellow of divine love. That's the first two lines of the verse. Now Gurudev goes on and he says, Swa Bhakti Shriyam is that Unnata Ujjvala Ras, elevated conjugal mellow, which can be attained by the Jiva soul. The soul cannot have what Srimati Radhika has. What is that? Mahabhav in both Madan and Modan. You have to understand these terms when you hear the breakdown of the stages of Mahabhav. So the soul, the Jiva, cannot have that, but Radhika, Srimati Radhika has. In exactly the same way as she has it. See? They cannot have that in exactly the same way that she has it. Madan and Modan, Mahabhav. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to taste Radha Bhav. He came to taste that, yes? Radhika's transcendental, ecstatic sentiments. He came to taste Radhika's ecstatic sentiments. And Radhaya Pranaya Mahima. He came to taste the glory of her love. Pranay Mahima. Mahima means the glory, the greatness. This is his own desire. Whose own desire?
His own.
Yes. Whose?
Krishna.
Krishna, in the form of?
Lord Chaitanya.
Yes. And he came to distribute this Manjari Bhav, service of Srimati Radhika and Krishna. He came to distribute that, but he came to taste Srimati Radhika's own Unnata Ujjvala Ras. Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they advised Raghunath Das Goswami, and they gave him Radha Kunda as his place to live and to perform bhajan. There he was always crying for Srimati Radhika and always rolling in the dust of Radha Kunda. Although he is a special Sakhi of Srimati Radhika and is never separated from her, in this Leela, as Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, he has played the highest role of a jiva, a Raganuga sadhak. He was not merely pretending. By Yogamaya's arrangement, he actually felt himself to be a sadhak. We have to understand this point. Once and for all, we have to understand. This is, otherwise, without Yogamaya, none of Krishna's pastimes can take place. Yogamaya makes everything possible. So, enabling an eternal associate to come to this world for the sake of serving in Krishna's pastimes, Yogamaya covers that jiva. It's not a covering of Mahamaya. It's completely different. Yogamaya covers that jiva with the conception that I am a sadhak. I'm practicing to attain this. They don't think I'm actually there eternally. They don't think that. Although Krishna is the God of gods, he weeps by seeing the stick in the hand of Mother Yashoda. Krishna weeps. We're singing that every day. I was just reading it this morning. Rudantam muhur netram yugmam rijantam karam boja yugmena shatam kanetram muhur shvasha kampa trirekam kakanta stitagraiva damodaram bhaktivadam. So, although he's the God of gods, but he weeps by seeing the stick in the hand of Mother Yashoda. He is not pretending. Krishna is not pretending. He actually has fear of Yashoda, and therefore he actually weeps. Similarly, although a near and dear Saki of Srimati Radhika, Raghunath Das Goswami, he's not pretending, although he's a near and dear Saki of Srimati Radhika. But he's not pretending. By the influence of Yogamaya, he does what he actually feels. He has two roles. One, as a practicing Raganuga Bhakti Sadhaka, and at the same time, in his Siddha Sharir, that means perfected body, perfected spiritual body, at the same time, in his Siddha Sharir, he is Rati Manjari, who is always serving both Radha and Krishna. Here's the verse from Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 157. Mane nija siddha deha. Mane means in the mind. Nija siddha deha, he thinks of his own perfected spiritual form. Kariya bhavan. Ratri dine kore braje krishner sevan. Within his mind, in his internally conceived, perfected spiritual body, he serves Krishna in Braj 24 hours a day, of day and night. Ratri dine kore vraje krishner sevan. Now, Gurudev, this next section, how to achieve one's spiritual form. That's a good title for a book. How to achieve one's spiritual form. Yes. There is a Siddha Deha, or Deha means body, or Siddha Sharir. Both mean body. Deha means body, Sharir means body. Siddha means perfected. A perfected spiritual body. There is a Siddha Deha or Siddha Sharir, a perfect spiritual body in every jiva. Without a Siddha Deha, one cannot serve Radha and Krishna. This material body is not fit for serving them. Did you know that? Then why are we doing archan with our material body? Taking bath, putting on tilak, doing archan, cooking. We're serving with our body. We think we're serving Radha and Krishna.
Practice makes perfect.
But what? Why? If we cannot serve Radha and Krishna with our material body, why are we doing all these activities?
If we're taking shelter of Guru, then Guru is actually performing. Gurudev said before, like, if you think of me before you're doing the offering, and that Gurudev is doing the offering, Gurudev is doing the archan, and you're just trying to facilitate these things. That you are thinking that I'm actually not the doer. Gurudev is doing all of these activities.
Okay. Any other?
We're spiritualizing all these.
Oh, the microphone.
Under the direction of Sri Guru, the ingredients that we offer, including our own body, are being spiritualized. So that process of sacrifice is recommended by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. These material elements can be dedicated to the service of Radha and Krishna, and thus become spiritualized, so they're no longer material.
But we just heard, you cannot serve Radha and Krishna with a material body.
So it becomes spiritualized by being under the direction of Sri Guru, engaged in such practice or service. That's delineated even in
So then does that mean that we're a newly initiated devotee. We have our spiritual name, we've been initiated, we've been instructed to do our various activities of service, right? Of bhakti, been instructed. So, according to your explanation just now, we are now, our body is becoming spiritualized and we're serving Radha and Krishna. Are we or not?
In the realm of practice, at least in this world.
But are we serving them actually?
It seems complicated because Krishna's deity form is non-different from Krishna. It's not different from him, but we're not serving Krishna in his manifest or unmanifest pastimes. So it's hard for me to understand here how, like, the distinction, because you never want to make the offense and think that Thakurji is not the same as Krishna. But Krishna also manifests in this form so that the sadhak can try to worship him. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer.
So you're going to try more?
I'm going to
Okay, go ahead.
So, although one's consciousness is not perfected, still by the direction of Sri Guru, there's a field being created where that potentiality can occur.
Well, it's a good theoretical explanation. Well, actually Rupa Goswami himself has told in his definition verse of bhakti. Right? It's all there. It's all there. What is Uttam Bhakti? Uttam Bhakti is the definition given in that verse. Someone can say the verse and then explain it.
It's the most quoted verses by Prabhupada and by Gurudev.
To explain it.
Or you can all say it together. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavrita anukulyena krishna shilanam bhaktir uttama. What's the translation or explanation of that verse?
It's bhakti that is devoid of karma, jnana.
Not covered by.
Not covered.
Not covered
Now
by.
I will do what Gurudev did to me. To you. I'll do it to you. What Gurudev did to me. You started. So as soon as I started and I said what you just said, Gurudev said, no, this is not the way that you explain this verse.
Oh, you explained.
The verse has Swarup Lakshan and what? Tatashta Lakshan. You begin explaining the verse by the Swarup Lakshan mentioned in the verse. And what line is that?
The second one.
No. What second one?
That's not this
Well,
one.
say it, quote it then, the second one. That's not the second line. The second line, what's the first line? Anyabilashita Shunyam. What's the second line? Jnana karma dhyanavrita. What's the third line?
Third line, then third and fourth.
Yeah, so get that straight.
Do you begin with one should constantly perform? Would you begin the explanation with like one should constantly perform 24 hours a day? Like
No, what you're explaining is, what is the swarup of bhakti? This actual swarup of bhakti is anukulyena Krishna. What does that mean? Anukulyena Krishna.
service that is favorable for Krishna. Or is that?
Oh, yeah.
Service that is favorable for Krishna.
Anukul means favorable.
And it also means under guidance also?
Yeah, but that comes later. Just these two words. Anukulyena Krishna.
What is favorable for Krishna? No?
What is, well, it's true, what is favorable. But sometimes devotees say what pleases Krishna.
Right.
right?
Mhm.
But that's wrong.
Yeah.
And you know why it's wrong. Because what?
Because Gurudev gives the example that
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example. Gurudev repeats that example.
that just because one activity may be pleasing to Krishna, it may not actually be favorable to Krishna, like Chadar and Mushtika are fighting with Krishna, and Krishna is enjoying this fighting rasa, but they're trying to kill Krishna,
Right?
not to do something that's favorable.
Not something favorable. So therefore we say, Anukulyena Krishna means for Krishna's benefit. Mother Yashoda is always doing everything for Krishna's benefit, but she displeased him when she put him down and went to rush to take the milk off of the fire. So is that not bhakti? Krishna became displeased. No, it's the highest bhakti, you see. So we have to understand all of these particulars. Very essential. That's why Gurudev kept on quoting it and kept on explaining it and gave us the books where it's explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and so forth. Because without understanding that, then it's vague. What is Uttama Bhakti? How are we actually serving Krishna? And how are we not? So, when we start explaining that verse with Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam, so this is the actual swarup of bhakti. It means, under guidance, Anushilanam. Shilanam means cultivation. This is how it's explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. Shilanam means cultivation. And it means constant cultivation, 24 hours. If it's not 24 hours and it's interrupted, it's not Uttama Bhakti. It's not in that category of Uttama Bhakti. Not such an easy thing to do Uttama Bhakti. But yet the whole Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu begins with that definition of what Bhakti is. Okay? And then we come to the Tatashta Lakshan, which is what?
It's not covered by jnana or karma.
Say the Sanskrit.
Jnana karma
No.
yanavritam.
First line
Anya vilasita shunyam.
means what?
It is without. Shunyam is like without, right?
Yeah, means zero. Shunya actually means zero.
One's own desires or interests and is not covered by knowledge or.
But here it says Anya Abhilasita Shunya. Abhilas means desire. Anya means others. Any other desire besides Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Any other desire. It has, if it's Uttama Bhakti, it has to be completely devoid of any other desire.
But it has to have desire because the desire for that must be there.
Desire for what?
For cultivating that favorable bhakti devotion towards Krishna.
Yes.
It's for it to be without
It's not
desire,
devoid of desire.
but it's devoid of other
It's devoid of any other desire besides this desire. This has to be the only desire of the devotee, is to act for Krishna's benefit. You see? That's why pure bhakti cannot have even a desire for liberation. Otherwise it's impure. It's tainted. It's not completely pure. And if it's not Uttama Bhakti, there is no way by executing that you are going to gradually rise up to higher stages of pure bhakti, to the stages of even nishta, or to speak of ruchi and so forth. No one can come to that unless they're doing Uttama Bhakti, unless they are striving with their whole being to do Uttama Bhakti. Otherwise, there's other types of mixed bhakti, which can be done by sadhaks, and that have to be done by sadhaks, because they have no other alternative. They cannot suddenly be situated on such a desireless platform. Then the second line is specifying. It's specifying what? That the bhakti cannot be covered. If it's covered, then it's not Uttama Bhakti. Covered by what? Rupa Goswami gives jnana, karma, and adi. Adi is referring to all other, like Ashtanga Yoga and so forth. That cannot, it can be there, it has to be there, because it's told that without some karma, you can't even maintain your material body. And there has to be some jnana, right? But it cannot be to the extent and the type that covers your bhakti. Okay? Jnana karamadi anavritam. That means not covered by. Anavritam means not covered by. So we've covered now the Swarup Lakshan, the Tatastha Lakshan. And then Rupa Goswami says, Bhaktir Uttama. This is Uttam Bhakti. We know that the word Uttam also means most elevated. So in this context, Rupa Goswami is using the term Uttama Bhakti. It can also be referred to as Kevala Bhakti. It can, just like in the Sri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Shadma, Kevala Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, like this. So, back to the point about what we're discussing, about how Gurudev is saying that
How to get one's spiritual form?
yes, how to get one. Right. I'm trying to find where he says you can't serve Radha and Krishna. Yeah. Okay, here he says, without a siddha deha, one cannot serve Radha and Krishna. This material body is not fit for serving them. So now, back to our point, our discussion. Are we serving? Well, everyone made some attempt to explain. And you're not incorrect. But it has to be understood completely in the proper context. How are we serving? We are in the stage of what? Vaidhi sadhana. Rules and regulations following under the guidance of pure Vaishnavas. Hearing from them. Doing the limbs of bhakti. Practicing. Is our material body becoming spiritualized? Yes. Is the microphone becoming spiritualized? Prabhupada used to like talking about this topic a lot. He says, you can hear, there's one fantastic lecture that he gave in 1972 in front of Rupa Goswami Samadhi. For 1 month, he lectured on the nectar of devotion. And there's one day in that lecture series, I don't know if it was a whole month or 2 weeks or whatever, but it was a whole series of lectures. And I remember he came to this point of talking about how when any object is engaged in the service of Krishna, it attains its original spiritual substance because it's engaged in Krishna's service. For example, we know that there are 3 different energies that Krishna has, 3 different categories of energy. The internal potency, Chit Shakti, right, or Swarup Shakti. The marginal potency, Jiva Shakti, and the external potency, Maya Shakti, right? But all 3 of these categories of energy are actually coming from one source, which is what? Swarup Shakti. Although it manifests in the form of unconscious matter, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. It manifests in that way. But in actuality, it's originally spiritual because everything comes from Krishna, right? And it's originally spiritual. But when it's disconnected by being averse to serving Krishna, then it has the material aspect of it. So Prabhupada, in his lecture, he said, I am always telling emphatically, there is nothing material. Because when it's engaged in Krishna's service, it attains a spiritual nature, you see. Doesn't mean that now, this microphone has become the Swarup Shakti potency of the Lord. But it's being used in his service and it attains a spiritual quality. And the example that we've heard a million times about putting an iron rod into a fire. Now that's a very good example because the iron does not actually change its shape. It still looks the same shape, but when you pull it out of the fire, it's red. It's red hot, and it acts exactly like fire. If you touch it to something, it's as if it's fire. It's no longer iron, but it becomes so much permeated by the intensity of the heat of the fire that the elements themselves, the iron elements and so forth, attain a fiery nature. Okay? So that's the example. Krishnized, spiritualized. Prabhupada used those terms to let us understand how, by living in this way, in the form of Vaidhi Bhakti, gradually, our anarthas can be vanquished, because this is the process. The process is required that our anarthas should be vanquished. With anarthas, there's no way that we can enter into our relationship with the Lord. They have to be cleansed. And what's the process? Shraddha begins with that. Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. This is the entire stages. And when those are completed to a good extent, then Nashta Praishu Abhajeshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva. Then all anarthas become vanquished.
What's the definition again of Bhajana Kriya?
Bhajan Kriya. Kriya means activities. Activities that are in the realm of bhajan, and that means what Rupa Goswami has written, the 64 limbs of bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, avoiding the 64 types of offenses, and so forth, like that. That's bhajana kriya.
So
To
Anartha
do.
Nivritti will come after, but after beginning Bhajana Kriya.
Say that again?
Anartha Nivritti will only come after Sadhu Sangha, Shraddha Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya.
No. It comes during.
Comes during.
Anartha Nivritti begins from the very beginning. By having sadhu sangha, by engaging our senses in the activities, the limbs of bhakti. We are that's why it says Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya in that special verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nashta Praishu Abhadreshu. Abhadras means anarthas, inauspicious things in the heart. So when these inauspicious things in the heart are mostly removed, not fully, because it says Prayeshu. Prayeshu means almost, not fully. But what activates that process? Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridi Antaksto Hi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. When Krishna sees, he's in our heart, and when he sees that we are hearing about him, Svakata, Krishna Katha, then Krishna acts as the Suhrit Satam, the well-wishing friend of the devotee, who's hearing about him. And what does he do? He cleanses away all the abhadras in the heart. And then, once that process has been continued to a certain extent, then, and how? By Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Serving constantly. Nityam means constantly. Serving Srimad Bhagavatam, the Shastra, and Srimad Bhagavatam, the person, Bhakta Bhagavat. Both of these. Then, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati, Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati. To Uttama Shloka Krishna, who is praised by all glorious, beautiful poems and praises. Then, unalloyed devotional service to him. Here it says, Uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. it becomes fixed now. It becomes in the stage of nishta. And even some ruchi is mixed in there. Because also taste is gradually developing. So there's lots of hope. That's why Gurudev would say, don't be hopeless. But we have a ways to go, and we have to stay on course. This is the thing, to stay on course and to not get deviated and distracted and do things that are opposed to bhakti and all of that. Otherwise, our progress will be halted, not fully, but it'll be delayed. Our progress will be delayed. But if we stay on course, and it's not only externally staying on, it's also internally. That's why we do kirtan every day. That's why we perform archan. That's why we do all the activities of bhakti. This is a full menu that every day we have to taste. We have to relish every day the process of bhakti. What will take place is that gradually we will come to the higher stages, and even our spiritual form that we will attain, it starts to manifest in the heart in the stage of asakti. And prior to that, there's not a spurti. The devotee is not able to see that, but the devotee is feeling those moods. But in the stage of asakti, just prior to the stage of bhav, where the full swarup shakti descends into the heart of the devotee, and he realizes swarup siddhi. He realizes in the stage of bhav. But prior to that, we're being prepared. You can read that in Madhurya Kadambini. Bhakti Devi is preparing. She's preparing the devotee for the dance steps of bhav. Like a dancing teacher example is given there. A dancing teacher sometimes takes the arms of the student and says, no, put your arms like this, and then put your leg like this, and like that. So, in the stage of asakti, Bhakti Devi now becomes the teacher, the dancing teacher, for the jiva to become acquainted with what are these moods of bhav, how one will live in that realm. Because now once one crosses over to the stage of bhav, there is no more material identification. He's still in the body, but there's no feeling of this is me. There's a complete separation. Like the coconut is an example of the coconut. When the coconut ripens more and more, at first it's a dab. But when it's left on the tree, it ripens. And what happens to the coconut? The inner part loosens and becomes the ripe coconut like we see in the market with the dark brown, But that disconnects from the outer shell. So the example is given like that. It's still in the body, but completely separate. Then we can begin to serve Radha and Krishna internally. And also, that's where real Rag Anuga Bhakti, Seva Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chatrahi, is possible then, in that stage, because of spiritual form. Okay? So prior to that, we are practicing and trying to prepare ourselves and develop the necessary moods and the necessary dedication, you see. So we're not actually directly serving Radha and Krishna, but they're there, they're watching us, and Guru is there as the intermediary, as you told. Without Guru, no one can approach Radha and Krishna. It's impossible, impossible. So, how to achieve one's spiritual form? There is a Siddha Deha or a Siddha Sharir, perfect spiritual body in every jiva. How is it there? That's what the discussion is all about. But nevertheless, the potential, because what is the original swarup of the jiva? Of every jiva, what's the swarup of the jiva?
Jivara Swarupa Hoy, Krishna.
Yeah. Every jiva has that tendency and that eternal constitutional nature and service. right? Every jiva has that. So it is without the practice of bhakti and the limbs of bhakti under the guidance of pure Vaishnavas, it can never manifest. It can never manifest in the form of a spiritual body. That course has to be gone through. I suppose you could call it the PhD level, right?
Sure.
So, P stands for perfect, H stands for, anyway, we can speculate on that one.
I'll just ask my Gurudev.
Okay. So, yes, and without a siddha deha, one cannot serve Radha and Krishna. This material body is not fit for serving them. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, one can perform bhajan and sadhan with this body, but for manasa chintan, meditating on and entering Radha and Krishna's pastimes, manasa chintan means to think in the mind, right? For that, the siddha deha is essential. Let's see what Gurudev says next. This can be achieved if a man has greed. Is there any other way to achieve it? No. Do we have greed right now? No. But is it possible for it to come? Yes. That's the big thing. So this can be achieved if a man has greed. If he has gone to a Siddha Gurudev, and if he is very eager to serve Radha and Krishna, yes. This can be achieved if a man has greed. If he has gone to a Siddha Gurudev, and if he is very eager to serve Radha and Krishna. Initially, his Gurudev will cause him to hear all the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. The Guru will watch and see in which ras the disciple has taste. Accordingly, he will let him hear the pastimes that will be very appropriate and useful for him. After that, by and by, Gurudev will tell Swarup Siddha Katha. Can an ordinary Guru do this? No. Only a Siddha Guru can do this. When Bhav comes in this body, that stage is called Swarup Siddha Vasta. Okay? Swarup Siddha Vasta. When Bhav comes in this body. And after attaining Swarup Siddha, one can imagine these pastimes. The word imagination, however, has a specific meaning here. Suppose a devotee is hearing a shloka of Raghunath Das Goswami from the lips of a pure guru. In that shloka, Rati Manjari is telling Rupa Manjari, O Rupa Manjari, I know that you are a very chaste lady in Vrindavan. Who's telling to who?
Rati to Rupa.
Mm-hmm. And she's saying that I know that you are a very chaste lady in Vrindavan. Everyone knows you. Your husband is not at home. Although he has been out of home for so many days, I am seeing some strange marks on your face. Why? Perhaps while you were sleeping, a parrot came, and thinking your lips to be a bimba fruit, he has bitten and cut them. She is smiling. Who's smiling? Rati Manjari is smiling. To who? To Rupa Manjari, and telling all these things. This is the first shloka of Vilapa-kusumanjali. This is the first shloka. There are very deep moods in this shloka. But who is the parrot that is being referred to? Because the Manjaris, they all have their so-called husbands. And there is a culture in Braj, and there is a chastity standards for all the chaste ladies of Braj and so forth, right? That when their husband is away, obviously, they will not have any physical interaction, right? So Rati Manjari is joking, actually. Srila Bhakti Srila Maharaj said, this is the level of guru and disciple that comes in these higher stages. It is, both are Sakhis, and there is joking. But there is Anugatya also. So she is telling that you have a reputation as a very chaste lady in Braj. Everyone knows that. But yet, your husband is away. He's gone on some journey. So he's away. But we're seeing that on your lip, you have a cut. So how could that be possible with your husband being away from home? So, but probably it has happened because you're a chaste lady, and nobody doubts that, right? So probably there was a parrot that came and mistook your lips for being bimba fruit and cut your lip. Who is that parrot? Krishna. You understand this point? So Gurudev is telling, he's quoting this Vilapa-kusumanjali. This is the verse 72. Sri Rupa Manjari Kararchita Pada Padma Goshtendra Nandana Bujarpita Mastakaya Hamodata Kanakagori Padara Vinda Samvahanani Shanakaistava Kim Karishye. So here Raghunath Das Goswami has written this verse. He's describing that Srimati and Krishna are fatigued from wandering in Vrindavan, or by performing their kunjalila. They've become fatigued. They are perspiring, and their faces look so beautiful. Srimati Radhika is laying down on the lap of Krishna, keeping her feet on the lap of Rupa Manjari. And Rupa Manjari is massaging her feet very, very softly. Krishna is caressing her hair, and she is feeling so much happiness on his lap. Raghunath Das Goswami, as Rati Manjari, is praying to Rupa Manjari, will you give me your prasadi seva? You know what that means? Prasadi means the remnants of that seva, so that I can also relish and taste that. Here Gurudev says prasadam means remnant. Rupa Manjari is massaging. Will she give that prasadam to me? In other words, will she call? And now you take over. If one remembers this pastime, is the remembrance imagination? It is reality. This is the meaning of imagination in this connection. Thinking about all the pastimes performed by Krishna and Radhika. If one is hearing and thinking, but without realization, is this imagination? It is true. Although there is no realization, something is there. After this imagination, the devotee can have some realization. So imagination has to come first. What does imagination mean? Thinking of their pastimes that have been heard from the perfect, pure devotees. So, although there is no realization, something is there. After this imagination, the devotee can have some realization. He continues to hear more and more, and he continues his practices of Rag Anuga Bhajan. Then, gradually, the Siddha Sharir will manifest by the grace of Krishna Chandra, Radhika, and Yogamaya. The Siddha Sharir will manifest. He uses the word gradually. Then gradually the Siddha Sharir will manifest by the grace of Krishna Chandra, Radhika, and Yogamaya. Simply by thinking, however, one cannot achieve anything. These pastimes come only by the grace of Krishna. If the Guru is qualified, if he is a pure Gurudev and has realizations of all the pastimes, he will also help. He will see the rasa of his disciples' Siddha Sharir, as did the Guru of Vrajanath and Vijay Kumar of the Jaiva Dharma, who gave them appropriate guidance. If a man is situated in Raganuga Bhakti, we're just finishing in 4 minutes. If a man is situated in Raganuga Bhakti, he will surely understand what is his Siddha Deha, and he will try hard to achieve it by the grace of Krishna, Guru, and Gauranga. Without this, one cannot actually think about Ashtayam Leela, Ashtakalya, who he is. He does not know, nor has he any idea of Krishna or Radhika. How beautiful! How beautiful they are, and what are their qualities? The sadhak should know their service, their seva. They should know their vesh, their dress, their bhushana, decorations, vayasa, age, her husband, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law, her residence, and the place in which her marriage was performed. One will have to know all these things. This comes at the stage of Swarup Siddhi. When he will be matured in this practice, then Yogamaya will take him after death to a sphere where Krishna's Leela is going on. There she will take her birth in a gopi's womb, and in the association of Nitya Siddha gopis, she will completely realize and serve Radha and Krishna. We should think of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami as a Raga Nuga Sadhaka, not as a Siddha. We should think of him in that way. There is no doubt that he is Siddha, a Manjari, but we can only follow him if we see him as a Raga Nuga Sadhak. In our present stage, we cannot follow Krishna or any Siddha Mahapurusha. We can only follow sadhakas. We should therefore consider Raghunath Das Goswami as a sadhaka, and gradually we should follow the way in which he performed his sadhana. Here, Raghunath Das Goswami is weeping on the bank of Radha Kunda towards the end of his life, when he is not able to live without the darshan of Srimati Radhika for even a second. Feeling so much separation, he is weeping and praying to her for service. And this is the last paragraph now of this section. These prayers that Raghunath Das Goswami is writing and speaking in the Vilapa-kusumanjali, these prayers are flowers. Vilapa means crying, weeping, and that weeping is the many kinds of flowers which he offers to Srimati Radhika's lotus feet. When he has one kind of bhav, of separation, and praying for a service, this is one kind of flower. All the 104 slokas are only for achieving Manjari bhav. None are for achieving Naika bhav, that of the older gopis. So Vilapa-kusumanjali ki jai, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pada ki jai, Jai Shri Rupa Goswami Pada ki jai, Jai Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
So much to